Hey everybody, thanks for joining us for another busy webinar. Today we're going to be talking about how to finish the year strong by going back to the future. I am going to do my best to avoid doing bad Christopher Lloyd impressions or bad Michael J. Fox impressions, but I guarantee nothing as we go on today. So thanks again for everybody who's joining us. It looks like we're getting some people who are just logged on right now. So I am going to get started in just a minute. As I'm recording this, it is a grand total of 48 degrees on the 8th day of September. I'm wearing a sweater, seriously thinking about turning on the fireplace. I am cold. So hopefully you're in a position where you are nice and warm somewhere cozy. So, all right, so let's go ahead and get started as we're talking about how to finish the year strong. If you're just tuning in to our busy webinars, a little bit about us. We are a full service growth marketing agency based in the Twin Cities. We specialize in inbound marketing, digital marketing, and web design. We have a number of laurels that we have on the screen there. Most important, we are a HubSpot Platinum agency. We are a Grow with Google high impact partner, and we have been a Constant Contact all-star since about 2011. We've been in business for 20 years, and we're coming up on 21, and we are just getting started with good stuff moving forward. So let's talk about this year. Oh boy, was this a year? This was a whole bunch of everything. By the way, I did want to thank the person behind the scenes who found an amazing amount of Back to the Future gifts that were peppered through this deck. So thank you for that. So okay, so remember January? Wasn't January great? It was easy. It was just like every other year. You figured out your marketing plan, you figured out tactics for the year, you set a budget, and you started working on the plan. Oh, that was great. Oh, wait, no, sales needs something new. It's not in the budget, so you got to figure that out. Oh, wait, management needs something new. That's not in the budget either. All right, we're going to figure that out. That's okay. We're going to dig in. We're going to make it happen. And oh, by the way, can you make this happen? And can you make the logo bigger? Oh, great. Oh, by the way, there's a worldwide pandemic on top of everything else, and we need you to make sure that we don't lose any revenue. Awesome. So you tried to complete the tactics as you outlined in your marketing plan, which include trade shows, advertising, some new literature for the sales team, some social media pushes, and then the world crashed down on you. And the trade shows were pulled, and advertising got harder, and sales started complaining about the lead quality. And then management says they want to enhance the brand, but they don't really say what exactly they mean by that. And tactics have to shift accordingly because your budget may get cut, and who knows what's going to happen. So then you look like this. It's the end of the year. Summer's over. Kids are hopefully getting back to school in whatever variation of how that means to you. And now every single department is operating at 88 miles per hour at peak efficiency because we're all looking at the end of the year thinking, oh gosh, suddenly running at 85% isn't enough when we have to get to 100% for our Christmas bonuses. So how are you going to meet your company goals? How are you going to meet your marketing goals? And more importantly, what on earth were those goals again? That's no problem. We can do this. We're going to end the year strong. We're going to recharge. We're going to regroup. We're going to look at the facts, examine the data, and then we're going to tweak our plan for success. So here's how I'm going to break this down for you today on how to finish the year strong by going back to the future. We're going to talk about the 5 most important stats you need to look at to get started. We're going to talk about KPIs, which stand for key performance indicators, and how to analyze them appropriately. And then we're going to check on your setting of the plan. And then fourth, how do we actually get the leads? So, okay, 5 stats to get started. We're going to start at the basics. We need to figure out, how is our marketing plan performing? And how do we do that? Well, the first option is to go to the sales team and say, well, gosh, guys, how's everything going? They will universally tell you that their leads are bad and that they need more leads. So you have to actually start to put some numbers down and actually create some data points that tell you how exactly you're doing. So that being said, though, what stat are you really going to look at? Well, there's a ton of possibilities. And number one is the leads coming in. Well, we want to look at how many leads we're getting, for one. For two, in what time frame. So if we have monthly sales goals, are we only getting 2 leads a month? Or are we getting 24 leads in a month? Where are they coming from? This is really key because we want to make sure that we know where they're coming from so that we can duplicate positive effort. What's the quality of them leads? And is it something that is revenue positive? One of the things that I like to ask people is, if I give you my mom's name and you hired me for lead generation, did I do my job? Well, on the one hand, yeah, I gave you a lead. It was my mom. On the other hand, really, really not, because my mom's probably not going to buy from you. So is the quality right? And then is it what sales is really looking for? Is it something that sales feels good about selling to and something that they can establish a long-term relationship with? So that's the first thing, number of leads coming in. The second is the website statistics. And there's a lot of different theories on this, but I want to lay out how we think about it at BizzyWeb. So first you want to look at the amount of unique visitors, not the amount of sessions, the amount of unique visitors. Those are the grand total of specific people that came to your site in a month. And then you want to compare that to returning visitors. So ideally you want a good mix and ratio of both. You want them to be going to at least 2 pages every time, and you want to examine how much time that they're spending on a page. If they're only spending 10 seconds and then on one page and then jumping off, well, that means they're probably just looking for your phone number where they don't see what they like. You want to check the bounce rate. You want to check where the traffic came from. So how did they find you? Was it through Google, through a social media channel, through a referral? Are they on a phone? Are they looking at you on a desktop computer? Does that matter? Of course it does. And then where are the conversions happening? Where are people actually taking the action you want them to take, which is to throw up a hand and say, yes, I'm interested in learning a little bit more. That could happen in a number of different places on a website. You want to make sure that you truly understand where yours are coming from. Yes, then the third is the keyword rankings. This gets challenging because this is sort of a black hole of SEO where you're really moving up and down on a regular basis. And a lot of people think that this is necromancy, but it's really not. It's really just making sure you understand a couple of specific things like keyword movement. And in the last 6 months, how much has your keyword movement changed in the positive or negative? It's often really enticing to think about looking at just how your rankings have increased over the last month, but that's like a quick spike. You really want to show long sustained growth over a long period of time. How do they stack up to your competition? Is your competition consistently ahead of you, or are you catching up to them, or are you ahead of them? And which pages are ranking? I spent the last hour before I got on with you today with a company that found out that their rental page in a sales and rental business was the highest ranking page that they had. So it's not often your front page. It's not often the page you want it to be. It could be something else. And then do you have any errors or warnings? This is something that gets scary quickly, but it's worthy of talking about. So the way that the Google search algorithm works is that they change it every 2 weeks and they don't tell you what the change is. So unless you're checking your keyword rankings on a regular basis and checking the health of your website on a regular basis, you get errors and warnings, which cause some problems, which cause you to lower your search ranking. And the only way to do that is to run it on a regular basis. Next, we want to look at audience engagement. Having a great big baseball stadium full of people is great, but we want them to buy hot dogs. So we need to know how many of those people are actually hungry for hot dogs. So when we're looking at audience engagement, some of the things that we want to look at is how much social media engagement did we get over the last 6 months? Did we get any shares? Did we get any likes? Did we get email marketing engagement? How many people opened our emails? How many people took the action we asked them to take over the last 6 months? And is that plus or minus from where we are last year? The click-through rate, that's the most important thing when we're talking about email marketing, but open rate is the second most important. Finally, we want to look at conversions. These are the people that fully raised their hands and said, yep, I'm ready to go. I'm interested. I want to take the next step. I want to talk to a salesperson. So good ways to think about this is to first look at the month-to-month click-through rate to make sure that it's pretty standard or growing up. And then you want to see the conversion rate. So of those click-through rates, how many people are then becoming a hand raiser? The converse of that, of course, is where are people not converting? So if you know where the people are converting, where are they not? And is that an opportunity for improvement on your website or on your social channels? And then how can you make it changes to entice users to convert in those other places? Oftentimes what you'll find is you'll find people who have the opportunity to convert, but there's no place to do it. So they may bounce off. So offering many different places to convert and to have somebody become a hand raiser is important. So those are the 5 most important things that you really have to look through. And of course, there's a lot of different subsets that go into that. And then, so really what we're trying to do is round all that information up and to really analyze the key performance indicators that are important for you. So in order to do that, we've got to go back in time. See, I promised you I wouldn't do any bad Christopher Lloyd impressions. I didn't say I wouldn't do any bad jokes. So let's start with the goals that you've set for marketing. So ideally, they're SMART goals. What do I mean by SMART goals? There's an acronym that we like to use at BizzyWeb that actually lays this out. They're specific goals, they're measurable, they're achievable, they're realistic, they're timely. All 5 of those things actually lead into creating a sustainable and smart goal. To give you an example of what a not smart goal is, a company I spoke to recently has 0 Twitter followers. Again, 0 Twitter followers. So I followed them on Twitter and I told them, look, I just increased your Twitter following by 100%. That is, while that is statistically true, that is not actually useful information because it's not realistic because they had 0. I mean, yeah, it is technically realistic, but it doesn't actually move the revenue needle. So as we're looking at our SMART goals, we need to also dovetail those into what exactly are the company goals. And so those tend to be a little higher level and they don't always pertain to marketing, but marketing does have their hands in a lot of different things like revenue, like leads, like profitability, like the product mix, like the type of client that you're seeing on a regular basis and how much you're growing the business. All of that marketing does have the hands in. And so a lot of what marketing's goals are directly affect the company goals and vice versa. Well, what do marketing goals specifically look like? There's a number of different ones, things like conversion rate optimization. How many people are you really getting to raise their hands? How many of those hand raisers lead to sales? How usable is your website? How much of a data mining can you do on your audience? And how can you show the kind of people that are looking at you online through audience research? Are you offering a download? If so, how many people are downloading it? If so, how many of those translate into a lead? If so, how many of those translate into a sale? If you can figure out all of that information, what you can back into is then turn that download into have an actual dollar figure associated with it. That on average, that one download that's offered translates, generally speaking, into X amount of positive revenue for the company. And then finally, how easy is it to get found online, and how are you ranking for positive keywords? So when you have these statistics, really what you want to do is compare them to your goals of where you are now versus what the goals are. So some of the things you want to look at are, how many leads do you have? How many are coming in? Is that more or less than where you were last year? Where are users falling off your online presences and on your website? Has somebody overtaken you in your online search? Is your audience truly engaging with your content and are all of the conversions that you're getting the right kind of conversions? Otherwise, you're just getting somebody's mom. Here's another way to look at it. This is a tool we use that we get from HubSpot. It's called the Inbound Marketing Traffic and Leads Calculator. And so we actually break this down based on what new monthly revenue is. So we say, okay, so we want this amount of new monthly revenue a month, and the percentage generated by one new customer or account, and then translates that into average revenue per client. So in order to get that, we need X amount of leads, which translates into X amount of sales. So this is a great tool. It is going to be available to you as part of the thank you email that you'll get from me a little later. But this is a wonderful tool because it actually helps you reverse engineer what exactly you need in terms of that lead generation and how exactly your marketing can push towards it. Fantastic tool. That's why I want to make sure that it gets shared with you. So, okay, so how exactly does all this measure up, and how does this compare to your goals? And the way you do that is you find that it's a mathematical tool called the delta, which is basically a fancy way of saying the difference between. So if we're looking at trying to figure out the delta, questions are things like, how many leads do we need to get to meet our revenue goals? This is an actual measurable thing if you are a sophisticated marketer. This is something we do all the time for our clients. This is something that you can do too. In order to find that out, you need to ask some other questions like, how many visitors do you need to get to your website? Are your sales and marketing teams aligned? How can you engage more people? How can you convert more people? Where are people taking a divergent path from there? Once you figure out all this, then you're really able to figure out what the delta is and how to set a new plan moving forward. So now that you've figured out what that delta is, you're going to change your plan for the rest of the year. So it sounds really easy, especially if you think about it in theory, but in a pandemic, plus your shortened amount of time, the real question you need to ask is, what do you really need to do to move the needle? And that's okay. We can help you with that. So first of all, know where you need to focus your efforts. So once you figure out what the statistically delta difference is, you'll see one or two things that are really glaring in your marketing engine. By and large, if you're hearing this, chances are good your marketing engine is probably pretty good, but it has an opportunity to be great. And in order to do that, you need to know where to focus your efforts. So if we're looking at our website, where can we focus there? Well, we want more visitors. We want longer times on the page. We want fewer people leaving. We want more pages viewed, and we want more conversions. If we're looking at our content on the website, we want more content viewed. We want longer time on page. That means people are reading more. We want more downloads. We want more calls to action that are converting. We're looking at SEO. Well, we want to look about how can we get found more easily? How can we increase our rankings? And when we increase our rankings, are we doing so in a way that is actually generating more traffic and more visitors, not just having a #1 ranking for the sake of having a #1 ranking? If we're talking about pay-per-click advertising, again, the most important thing is, how are we getting conversions? Because this is an actual spend of real money, as opposed to labor, where you're spending money in order to get conversions. So how are those ads being seen? Are they being seen by more people? And are they being seen by the right people? And can you increase that? Next, we want to look at our social media channels. How can we increase our likes? How can we increase our shares, especially our shares? Because a share is an implicit endorsement of the product or service that's being offered. And within that number of increasing our shares, how do we increase our click-through rate? So we're getting people not only to see it, like it, but also do something with it. With email, what we're trying to improve is our click rate, our open rate. How do we minimize bounces? How do we minimize being accused of being spam? All of this you can accomplish by using an email service provider. We have a number of ones that we like. The top two ones that we generally use at BizzyWeb for our clients is HubSpot and Constant Contact. If you have some interest in that, I'd be more than happy to share with you later. All right, so we've determined that our website is something that we need to look at. In order to do that, we need to increase our visitors, maybe longer time on page, lower bounce rate. How do we actually accomplish that? Well, first things first is when we have a call to action, when we're at and that's what a CTA stands for. What is a CTA? It is something that should lead to another page. So it is specifically when we're talking about increasing our visitors and longer time on page, you want to make sure that you have a CTA that always leads to another page or a landing page where people can get the answers they're looking for quickly. If we can, we want to increase the amount of content we have on the page, and we want to make sure that we have related blogs at the bottom of each page. This is sort of the Amazon effect. If you look at a product, then let's look at 4 more complementary things that go along with that. Similarly, with a blog content, if you have a blog on a specific topic, then there are probably topics that work in concert with that. We want to make sure that we offer that to our visitors as well. The About Us page should link to each page on the site, and it should link to everything that leads to a conversion point on your site. You want to update your site regularly, at least once a week. Let me rephrase that. Ideally, at least once a week. Sometimes that's not able to happen. Sometimes it is. But really what Google is looking for now is they're looking for more content and more relevant content. So the more that you can feed that beast, the better. If we're thinking about content, we like our website, but we want to figure out how do we grow our content strategies. Well, you're going to need to do a couple of things. You're going to want to have more time on page. You're going to want to have more downloads. You want to increase the number of pages viewed. Well, first things first is to start with the basics. Talk about your customers' problems, your prospects' problems, and how exactly do you solve them. Your CTA should use action words, things like call, schedule, click here, things like that. There should be at least 1 per page. When you're writing your blog, you need to write about the things that your customers ask regularly, and you want to create gated downloadable content. Gated content is sort of an older concept that's really now referred to more as a give and a get. So if you give me your email address, then you will get something from me, like an ebook or a checklist or something that is a positive help to you. One of the things that we found is really fascinatingly interesting in our clients to the positive is that we found that the longer service pages are, the better chances you're going to get about ranking higher and getting more people to take an action. And what do we mean by that? Well, we're talking about between 1,500 and 3,000 words. That seems like a lot for a website, but it's true. If you're trying to increase your SEO strategies, a couple of things to keep in mind. Number 1, constantly and consistently eliminate all errors and warnings. That's something that has to be done on a regular basis by somebody who really understands how websites work and how content is an integral part of that. Make sure you go over your keyword list for relevance. The way you check relevance is the amount of traffic that you're getting from there. If you have a keyword that you think is cool and you're ranked number 1, but nobody searches for it, I'll give you a hint. It's not actually cool. Make sure all your keywords are in all content on every page, but it's not keyword stuffing. Keyword stuffing is something that is considered verboten and is a technique that people who don't really understand how SEO works does. Keep in mind that longer pages get found easier for more keywords, but it does take longer to read. And just as a quick rule of thumb, remember as you are trying to reach your goals for the year before next year, SEO does take longer for a payoff, but this is a long-term strategic move and it can make an impact quickly. If we're trying to increase our pay-per-click strategies, well, we want to increase our conversions to make sure that we're seeing the right people, and we want to make sure that the right people is as big of a baseball stadium as possible. So we want to make sure that our ad group demographics are right, maybe edit our ad content, ensure that the links are bringing people to the right page on your site. So it doesn't just go to the home page, it actually makes a difference and leads them exactly to where the ad said it would. If you can, use a landing page as often as possible because it tends to muddy the traffic if you don't. And if you have a landing page that is associated with one specific ad, then you really are able to tell what kind of traffic comes specifically from that and where it leads. Finally, what we're seeing right now is that videos get amazingly high click-through rates, not only in advertising, but also on social channels as well. If you're thinking about your social strategies, one of the questions we get asked a lot is, hey, I'm a B2B company. Nobody really is going to buy from me based on a Facebook post that they see. Well, that might be true. I would disagree with the premise a little, but it is true that they will not buy from you based on what they see. So it's important to increase the likes and the shares. It's important to increase your click-through rate. How do you do that? Well, you can use some humor or more humor. I added the some there. That's probably the one change that I substantively made to this deck. As somebody who is a lifelong purveyor of thinking I am funnier than I actually am, it's important to make sure that your humor does play for everybody. So ask somebody before you try and post a joke if it's really funny or not. And if they kind of crinkle their nose or hunch their eyebrows, maybe it's time to rethink that. One of the things that we see social media strategies really working right now is showing what your employees are up to. Things like showing your company culture, showing the fun that you're having in the office, show how tight-knit of a group and how positive of a place it is to work. That does lead to greater conversion. You want to make sure that you link back to everything on your website or the event page that you've created, any links to articles that you've blogged about. Sharing your email newsletter is another thing, and you want to make sure that when you share your email newsletter that you also include a link to sign up for the newsletter, and then make sure your imagery is updated. Nothing is worse than having a 6-year-old photo of 3 people who don't work there anymore. With email, an email strategy that you might want to keep in mind is improving your click-through rate and your open rate, and you want to make sure that you are minimizing the bounces and spam reports. So a couple of things in order to make sure you're doing that well. Don't email out a PDF. Don't email out a full-size image. Chances are good that won't render correctly when somebody opens it. Make sure that you put short copy in it that points back to more info on your website. Nobody ever wakes up in the morning and says, man, I really want to read a 6-paragraph email today. I hope I get that one from that company so I can figure out who I'm going to buy from today. That just doesn't happen. Use email as a tool to lead back to your website, which will lead to asking them to put their hand up, which then will lead to starting a genuine relationship. Videos get clicks. This is the way of the world now. So if you're interested in doing some video stuff, we're going to have a webinar on that very, very soon. But videos definitely get clicks. Use engaging imagery and use relevant imagery, things that are actually relevant to your business, not just fake stock photos. All of us have a great camera in our pocket as well as a supercomputer. Take it to your advantage. It doesn't have to be great photography, but it does have to be good photography that's important and relevant to you. Remember, all the links in your email should go back to your website. That's a great way to create a pretty cheap CTA to take somebody back to your website, is make sure that all the links get back there. Because if you've done your website correctly, then once you get them there, you're going to get them interested, and hopefully they're going to take the action you want to take. And lastly, it's probably time to clean your email list. This is something that nobody really likes to do because you always like to have a really big, beefy email list that has a lot of names on it. But if you've got people who haven't opened your emails in years, it's probably not a good fit anymore. Okay, so now all that gets rounded up into doing the great things, which is getting the leads, getting your density. And oh, wait, that's not exactly what he meant. So your strategies, your tactics are in place now about those leads. So you got them there. They're doing the things that you want. You want to warm them up before sales has to pick up the phone. So how exactly do you do that? You do that through inbound marketing. And this is a topic that we like at BizzyWeb because we're very, very good at it. And a lot of our customers find a lot of success at it. So what you start with is you start by advertising and promoting a give-get content that's valuable to your prospects. So something that is informative, educational, but leads somewhere and leads them to make a specific conclusion. Offer that on your website or through advertising. And then once you get that bit of contact information from them, you can capture that as a lead because they've got some interest in doing something. Depends on what the content is, but they are actually interested. So now what we get to do is nurture them along. So we're going to show them other relevant examples. We're going to show them some blogs, some case studies, show them different pages on our website, maybe offer them another promotion and a giveaway to really get them solidified and interested in us. And what is their interest really trying to do? Well, their interest is demonstrating that we are great at solving your problem. What is your problem? Well, that's specific to you, dear listener. So once you do that, on about the second email, you want to start using some calls to action, and that's what CTA stand for again. So that's where you're asking people to reach out, and you're asking people to throw up a hand and say something. If you do this right, all the information that you provide in the marketing side will warm them up. So then when they do raise their hand, then sales doesn't have to educate as much as sales just has to comfort them through the rest of the process. So all they're doing is taking the next steps and making sure that all their questions are answered and that it truly is a good fit. When you have sales and marketing alignment, which is often a challenging thing, you've got a lot of different people working together, but ultimately what you've got is higher revenue. So what can you do from a marketing standpoint? Well, first meet with your sales department to make sure that the marketing to sales handoff is smooth and that your customers are getting what they need, and then the salespeople are treating them appropriately and getting back to them in a timely fashion. Both sides really need to understand the marketing efforts and the sales process. If you don't have that, then you get finger pointing in people who are generally unhappy, like I've got on screen right here. But ultimately, what your job as a marketer to do is to get the salespeople to pin down the idea of when is a lead warm enough to give it to them. When is enough? So how many different points of contact, how many different pages do they have, does a prospect need to see? How many different things can you collect and tee it up for the salespeople? The way you do that is by lead scoring, giving certain weighted amounts of information to different pieces. So then when you give it over to sales, you can show the salespeople why exactly this is a good qualified lead for them. The easiest way to do that is to have all the information supplied in a CRM. If you don't have a CRM, I'd very much encourage you getting one because they are fantastic. And especially as you're asking sales to do things, you want to make sure that that all of that is right at everybody's fingertips, because the alternative, of course, is that you've got all that documented so you can ask for a bigger budget next year as well. So when somebody comes in and they haven't taken any amount of information, but they maybe throw up their hand or they poke around a little, that's called an MQL, a marketing qualified lead. That's a lead, but it's cold. They're still looking at you with a wary eye and still thinking that something's not going to add up. So what your job as a marketer is to nurture them through a number of different tactics in order to warm them up and to soothe their savage feelings so that they really understand that you're there to solve a problem. Once you get it to that point, then it becomes a sales qualified lead. And that's a lead that's been nurtured and it's saying, yep, I want more and I want to be contacted and I want to take the next steps. It's important to make sure that you get feedback from sales on a regular basis. So in order to do that, You want to make sure that you're meeting with sales every couple of weeks. You want to show them the amount of MQLs that they have and how many SQLs have been converted. You want to ask them, how is the lead quality? They will universally tell you that it's bad, but eventually they'll start to thaw and they'll start to cock their eye a little and say, well, before they answer, and then you know you're really doing your job. Ultimately, what that feedback will give you is the opportunity to understand if you really need to tweak your messaging. And so if the leads are all universally bad, well, then it's time to maybe change some stuff up. And hopefully your salespeople actually meet you halfway. Also, do you need to tweak the demographics? But more importantly, where are people falling off in the nurturing campaigns? Because that's something that you can take in a direct effect towards changing quickly. And you get that through getting that feedback of how exactly the salespeople are interacting with them. More importantly, though, it does create a sense of accountability, because if the salespeople know that you're going to be asking these questions on a regular basis, it does mean they're going to be accountable for their actions in order to get the right things to you, and because you're going to be consistently asking. So they're going to start maybe keeping better track of how they deal with your leads and how they treat your leads, so that you can get the right information. Because if you get the better information, then you're going to give them better leads. The way you do that is by tracking your goals. So what we do for our customers, we check our effectiveness every 2 weeks. We make sure that we're close to hitting our goal. If not, what tweaks need to be made. And then we report back to our clients, and in your case, it would be management or sales, how progress is coming. So you can say, hey, we're 85% of the way to goal for the year, or we're 50% of the way to goal for a year. If you can qualify that with a real number, that makes your life so much better. But most importantly, keep in mind you're doing great. And no matter what sort of results that you're seeing, you're doing the best you can in a very, very trying time. And we know that better than anybody, because we see this all the time. But the more you can start tracking this information and showing how marketing leads to a goal, the more great ideas you're going to have the next time you ask for a budget. So how did we break all this down today, and how did we get going back to the future? Well, we started with the 5 statistics that you really need to look at to get an idea of what your baseline is, and then compare those to your KPIs, your key performance indicators. Next, we talked about how you could set the plan and how you could get those leads over to sales and actually show how effective your marketing is. And remember, where we're going, we don't need roads. All right, so if you need a little bit more from us, that's great. We're going to offer you an email today with a free ebook on how digital marketing can help you achieve your goals. It's a great book. It's very extensive, and it's very informative. I recommend you check it out when I email it to you later. Next month, we're going to be talking about how to budget for 2021, and it's that time of year again. So remember, we don't need no stinking budgets. Well, actually, we kind of do. So where's all the digital marketing at? That's going to be Wednesday, October 7th, and you can find out more information about that at BizzyWeb.com/events. Thank you all for coming. I'm really happy that I was able to spend a little time with you today. If you'd like to talk to me directly, that's my picture, that's my information. I'd be more than happy to chat with you at any time. If you're seeing a recording of this, again, feel free and reach out. I'd be more than happy to talk with you and see what we can do to be of service. So appreciate everybody for joining us. We'll see you next month on October 7th. Have a great afternoon. Stay warm.